How's it going, everybody? I'm Jeff Slakey. I'm at Faith Lutheran Church with Pastor Doug Peterson here, 1212 Connection Street. And this church is definitely making connections. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you very much for coming, Jeff.
So Doug and I met a couple weeks ago. We were here talking about ways that Faith Lutheran in the community is really turning this facility in kind of a community center here. And you've got a whole host of organizations that spend time here to help with resources. Yeah. We'll get into that in just a second, but you've been here now for 5 years.
5 years, 2018.
Tell me a little bit about your journey that led you here.
My wife, Brenda Satram, she's also pastor here on staff. We've been pastors for 30 years in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. She grew up south of Portland. I'm a pastor's kid. We moved back and forth all growing up. We've served churches in Montana and out in Western Washington. We'd been in Enumclaw prior to Hamilton, Montana. Now, anyway, we're here. We've been here about 5 years or so, serving this congregation and really enjoying it. We came in 2018. We were just starting to get to know the neighborhood and community, and then that COVID thing happened. You know, it kind of slowed things down.
Man.
But that ended up, as things began to open up, that began to be a place to be able to open up our building to agencies. And that's how some of these new partnerships have come together.
So you grew up in the church, but what was kind of your calling to continue the service?
You know, I think when I was 12 years old, I was having a theological conversation with my friend Leif Knutson, and he and I were talking about what we wanted to do when we grew up, and at that time I actually had a pretty clear sense I wanted to be a pastor. Watching my parents as pastors, seeing the work that they did, seeing their character, and the kind of love that I received growing up in the church. To be able to do some good and to it sounds cliche, but to share the love of Jesus.
Sure.
And to do that in church communities. I'm not growing up in churches. I learned to be really comfortable in churches, so I kind of know my way around and know how to be able to work a room and hang out with quilting ladies and drink coffee with the guys down on Saturday mornings and everything in between. So just became a pretty natural place to kind of, for a calling.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you said 2018 here. Yeah. Were these additional services here already, or was that something that you guys brought in?
You know, when we got here, Brighter Days had their facilities here, or their services here. They did adult daycare for seniors with special needs. And so we had an informal relationship with them. During COVID, their services went away. But then a couple years in, we started actually having quilting groups saying, we can't quilt where we used to quilt. Can we use your space? And we felt comfortable as long as people used masks and common sense. It's a big space, and so we began to allow to welcome those groups in. We had a discussion with Meals on Wheels. That didn't work out, but then other agencies just kind of kept coming and wondering about our facilities. Kids Cove Preschool, they were looking for, both of the teachers had connections to the church, and asked if they could bring their preschool to the campus. And so it just one after another. Then Cielo came along and they needed some office space. And then last year NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, came along. And then she had a friend from Catholic Community Services who needed some space for some counseling. So next thing you know, we're hosting just a whole cacophony of helping agencies.
And that's kind of, when you and I were talking last week, that's kind of what you want this whole thing to kind of be, a community center. Is there a day that this isn't being utilized?
Well, that's the fun thing, is we've got this facility that people pour their hearts and souls into to make available. And then especially during COVID, there would be days at a time when there's just nobody here.
Yeah.
And it was on my heart to say, I sure hope that one of these days we can get it to where these halls are filled every day. And today we've got a group of people quilting over here. We've got some other folks working on the Cielo food bank that's going to be here tomorrow in the fellowship hall. We've got people here in the office. And I was telling you about the gal who came earlier today. I saw a woman dropped off outside here. I said hello. She didn't speak English. I said, just a moment. And Maria, who works for NAMI in our office, is bilingual. So Maria came out and talked to the woman who needed to talk to the people over at Cielo about something. So it came to the church. I welcomed her. The NAMI person interpreted, and we brought her to the Cielo resources that she needed.
That's amazing.
And that, to me, that's just a beautiful thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You were telling me too that there's English and Spanish congregations here that spend time here. I've been here for musicals.
Yep.
I've been here for sound learning graduations. I've been here for other meetings.
We've had this community theater. It used to be called Faith Acts. Now it's Connection Street Theater. They come in. Sound Learning has their graduation ceremonies in our fellowship hall. Just multiple agencies. The Cielo Food Bank that's coming, going to provide food for 200 families who have ties to Guatemala and other Central American countries. It is just really a lot of fun to see this. One congregation years ago, a small Seventh-day Adventist Spanish-speaking mission start needed a place. And we're not using the sanctuary on Saturday mornings, so go ahead.
Wow.
And last year, right around Christmas, some folks from the Cielo office introduced me to some people from Agua Viva Internacional, whose church building had a car run into it.
Sure, yeah.
And here it is just before a major event that they were going to have, and they needed a space. And so Cielo folks introduced me to Pastor Eric, who said, can we use your building for this event? We said, yes. And the next week we said, they came back and said, we love your space, and it's right in our community where we want to reach more people for Jesus. Can we enter into an agreement? So now they worship on Sundays and Thursdays here, Agua Viva International.
Wow.
And just the back and forth between all these different agencies, and I believe that's the Holy Spirit. I believe that's when people's hearts are open to helping and serving, and open to saying yes to opportunities to partner, and then I think good things happen.
What's the fellowship like that you lead and your wife leads here? What's the kind of the numbers, the average?
So on a Sunday morning, we'll have about 100 folks or so. We're coming up on 75 years in this community. Started down the old Consejo building there. That was the original building for Faith Lutheran Church.
Okay, so that's just behind the Shelton Inn there by the Safeway downtown. Yeah.
And then about 40 years ago, we moved up here to the to the outskirts of town.
Yeah, right.
And has continued this ministry. Like so many churches, kind of added on and saw lots of growth and families. And over the last 10 or 15 years, the trends changed a little bit. And then COVID hit and kind of hurt our numbers, but hasn't hurt our spirit.
That's good.
And so there's 10 gals down in the quilting room right now, and they are making quilts. They make hundreds of quilts that go out to Lutheran World Relief to provide warmth and care for families around the world.
So you're real busy here, but do you get a chance to head out and spread the word more, or you're kind of holding fort here now?
I'm finding more opportunities to reach out, and I've been to be a representative of the church, of Faith Lutheran Church, and I've had the opportunity. I went to a NAMI picnic that they had here in town, and so I was able to connect with some people who are working with people with mental illness in this community. That's a new presence in town. So not only do I support NAMI, but then I also get a chance to make connections with the community and see who else is out there? And often people say, "Oh, I was a Lutheran once," or "What time is your church service?" Or and so just to make those connections, and yeah, we had somebody recently was looking for a kitchen to help them for getting ready for the Oyster Fest, and turned out that they had a past connection to the church and was able to invite them. Next thing you know, their family came to an event at our church last night. Just kind of fun stuff like that, where opportunities just to say hello and welcome, and we serve, and in response people say, I want to be a part of that, or that seems like something that I could support as well. So, yeah.
We're here at Faith Lutheran Church, 1212 Connection Street in Shelton, Washington, talking with Pastor Doug Peterson with, again, many services here that you can come and check out. There's also weekly services, like you mentioned. There's grief counseling. There's opportunities for quilting, like you said, and just a lot of opportunities. I think, too, if you're with any of the Rotaries or Kiwanis clubs, he'd be great to come and talk about what's offered here as the services get expanded out. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely. You mentioned the grief course, and Thursday afternoons, retired Pastor Terry Oliver is now a member of our church. Shout out to Terry. But he has a heart for grief ministries, and we open our doors Thursdays at 2:00. I think a brand new course is starting up, and all of us have issues of grief and loss. Just as you were walking in today, I was talking to a person whose aging mother is maybe in her last days, and so there's even just kind of working out those logistics and those feelings. But then after the death, now what? Yeah. How do I process this? How do I say goodbyes? How do I honor that legacy? How do I move forward? So that's another really important and helpful ministry that I feel good about. Sure. I can go. I'll tell anybody about what's going on here. I'm so excited about it.
Friendship and fellowship here at Faith Lutheran. Thanks again.
Amen. Yeah. Thank you.